website today, or even just marketing one,
Right.
you generally operate on this one foundational assumption, and that is you are building a digital space for human eyes.
Yes.
You design the navigation menus, you pick the typography, you're crafting all this narrative copy, and it's also so a person can land on your URL and, well, basically organically explore your digital real estate.
Right. That's the traditional visual web.
Yeah, but here is the hook for today's deep dive. What if the next billion visitors to your site never actually see any of that? What if your most important visitors aren't human at all, but they're these algorithms programmed to just totally bypass your storefront, read your raw inventory, and then serve it up on a completely different platform?
Which is exactly what is happening right now. I mean, the traditional visual web is it's being rapidly marginalized by the very platforms we used to rely on for traffic.
Right.
So we are witnessing this fundamental rewiring of how information is discovered, processed, and then ultimately presented to the end user.
And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive, right?
Yeah.
We're pulling from this incredibly comprehensive strategic briefing that maps out the modern blueprint of search visibility.
Yeah, it's a massive shift.
It really is. So whether you're a digital marketer, a developer, or just someone wondering how information is found on the internet today, we need to understand how AI is rewiring this whole discovery engine. We're moving away from traditional SEO, so search engine optimization, and we're entering the era of GEO, which is generative engine optimization, and AEO, answer engine optimization.
Yeah, it's quite the alphabet soup right now.
It is. It is. But to understand how to optimize for this new environment, we have to look at the mechanics, right? Like, what are we actually optimizing for? Because these new platforms, things like Perplexity, ChatGPT search, Google AI overviews, they have a completely different end goal than the legacy search engines we all grew up with.
Right. I mean, the shift is best understood if you look at the desired user journey.
Okay.
So a traditional search engine, think of it like a high-speed transit system. Its primary goal is to get the user off its own search results page and onto a relevant third-party website as quickly as possible.
Right. You type something in, you get 10 blue links, you click one and leave.
Exactly. But an answer engine operates on this zero-click philosophy. It wants to be the final destination. So it aggregates, synthesizes, and resolves the user's query directly within its own interface.
Wow. Okay.
It doesn't want the user to bounce away to your carefully designed website, you know? It wants to extract the underlying value from your data and just present it natively.
That makes total sense. I look at it kind of like organizing a massive physical library.
Okay, I like that.
So traditional SEO is like you formatting your website perfectly. You map out the Dewey Decimal System, right? So that the librarian, which in this case is the crawler bot, can easily read the titles on the spine and then hand a patron a list of books to go read themselves.
Right, here's your list. Go figure it out.
Exactly. But these new answer engines, they act more like an overachieving researcher.
Yes.
They read all the books in the library for you. They synthesize the conflicting information, and they just hand you a polished executive summary. They're not handing out reading lists anymore.
No, they're not. And the mechanics of that researcher analogy, they rely on a process called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG.
RAG.
Yeah, or a J. So when a user asks an answer engine a question, the underlying model isn't just relying on the static data it was trained on months ago.
Right, because that would be out of date.
Exactly. So it actively queries the live web, it retrieves these highly relevant snippets from multiple sources, and it feeds those snippets into its context window to generate a real-time synthesized answer.
Okay, but this raises a huge question for me. If the AI is pulling all this data into its own context window, right, and serving up the final paragraph directly to the user, how does a website maintain any visibility at all?
Right.
I mean, why would an answer engine even bother citing a source if its ultimate goal is to own the user experience? It feels like it would just generate the answer and take all the credit.
Well, the platforms are actually forced to cite sources, and it's because of the inherent architectural flaws of the models themselves.
Wait, really? Clause?
Yeah, well, we know these models are basically probabilistic prediction engines.
Okay.
Which means they're highly prone to hallucination. They just make things up.
Right. We've all seen the AI give totally wild answers.
Exactly. So to make them commercially viable and, more importantly, trustworthy, the platforms have bolted on these strict citation algorithms. These algorithms literally force the AI to mathematically ground its generated text in real retrieved data from the live web.
I see.
Yeah, because without the citation, the user has absolutely no way to verify the output, and the platform loses trust.
So they have to show their work.
They have to show their work. But the critical detail here, especially for developers and marketers, is that these citation algorithms look for entirely different signals than old school crawlers.
Okay.
They are completely blind to things like keyword density or, cleverly written meta descriptions.
Which is everything SEO used to be.
Exactly.
So what are they looking for then?
They're looking for structural truth and recognized authority.
Structural truth.
Yeah, because the AI acts like a researcher synthesizing answers, right? Rather than just matching text strings on a page, websites basically have to alter the actual structure of their information.
And the briefing breaks this down into 4 specific pillars, right?
It does.
The strategies required for generative engine optimization, GEO, and AEO. We've got content structure, entity clarity, brand citations, and source authority.
Right, those 4.
But wait, haven't we always cared about content structure and authority? Like, what makes entity clarity and brand citation specifically so vital for an LLM compared to just a traditional Google crawler?
That's the core of it. So entity clarity requires the biggest operational leap for anyone who's used to legacy web development.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, a traditional crawler relies on character strings. It assumes a page is about, say, predictive logistics, because that exact character string appears in the H1 tag, in the URL, and maybe 12 times in the body copy.
Right, keyword stuffing. We've all seen those pages.
Exactly. But an answer engine doesn't count words. It builds a semantic knowledge graph.
Okay.
It understands entities as distinct, well-defined concepts, like nodes in a vast web of relationships.
So let's ground this in a real-world scenario. Let's say a B2B SaaS company sells a platform for supply chain management,
Okay.
and they are trying to rank for concepts around predictive logistics. How does entity clarity actually change the way they would write and structure a white paper?
Great example. So in the old model, that white paper might start with this long narrative introduction about the history of supply chains, and eventually it drops the target phrases a few times before getting to the actual point.
Right, you're setting the scene for a human reader.
Exactly. The human reader connects the dots. But for an LLM citation algorithm, all that narrative fluff just obscures the entities.
Well, wow.
To achieve entity clarity, that same white paper needs to explicitly map the logical relationships.
No fluff.
No fluff. It needs to clearly state something like, predictive logistics utilizes real-time weather API integration to reduce shipping delays by 14%.
Okay, so just straight to the facts.
Straight to the facts. But notice what happened there. You defined 3 distinct entities.
Predictive logistics.
Yep. Weather API integration
Okay,
and shipping delays. And you have explicitly defined the causal relationship between them.
I see.
If your content relies on human intuition to read between the lines, the LLM will just bypass your site entirely for a competitor who explicitly connects the nodes in a machine-readable format.
So you essentially have to write with mathematical precision. You're structuring the logic of the argument so the machine can map it directly into its knowledge graph.
Exactly. The structural logic is what allows the answer engine to pull your specific sentence into its generated summary.
Because it needs to be confident.
Right. The model needs to be confident that your data point accurately answers the user's prompt.
Which plays directly into the 3rd pillar from the briefing, right? Brand citations.
Yes.
Now, in traditional web strategy, link building was the gold standard. You wanted high-authority domains to physically hyperlink to your URL as a vote of confidence. So are brand citations just the modern evolution of the backlink?
They're related, but they are far more expansive than a traditional backlink, mostly because they don't actually require a physical hyperlink to pass value.
Wait, really? No link at all?
No link. LLM citation algorithms weigh the proximity and the frequency of your brand name, which they treat as an entity itself, in relation to specific topics across the entire corpus of the internet.
So it's about context.
Exactly. So if an answer engine ingests 10,000 industry research papers, forum discussions, news articles, and it notices that top experts consistently mention your brand name in the same paragraph as the phrase predictive logistics, the model inherently maps your brand as a core authoritative node related to that topic.
Even if none of those mentions actually hyperlink back to the company's website.
Exactly. The AI's internal logic dictates that it just cannot accurately synthesize an answer about predictive logistics without referencing this specific brand.
Because the broader internet has structurally integrated the brand into the truth of the topic.
You nailed it. And establishing that kind of ironclad source authority, that forces the answer engine to recognize your site not just as a relevant page to crawl, but as a foundational truth.
Right.
A truth that simply must be cited in its generated output.
Because if your brand is the recognized source of the data, the AI uses your data to train its response, and the citation just follows naturally.
Exactly. It's unavoidable for the AI at that point.
Wow. Okay, and the briefing also hammers on content structure as the fourth pillar. We talked about removing the narrative fluff for entity clarity, but content structure for GEO and AEO also dictates this huge shift toward modular, high-information density formatting.
Yes, very much so.
We're talking about bulleted lists, precise tables, direct Q&A formats. Basically, we are pre-digesting the information so the LLM's citation algorithm can extract the exact isolated snippet it needs without parsing through 3 paragraphs of prose.
Pre-digesting the data, that is the core philosophy of modern technical SEO right now.
But think about that practically. I mean, rewriting a massive corporate website or a 10,000-page e-commerce catalog to be mathematically precise and modular for an AI.
Yeah.
That's an impossible manual task.
Oh, totally impossible, which is why the strategy relies entirely on back-end automation.
And that brings us to the actual execution, the plumbing. Because knowing the theory of entity clarity and source authority is one thing, but the briefing details this highly specialized, emerging AI tool stack that practitioners are using right now.
Yeah, the tooling is fascinating.
We are looking at automated schema builders, AI audit platforms,
Huh?
content intelligence engines, and programmatic GEO tooling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at how these tools interact with a website's code, it kind of feels like installing a universal translation chip directly into the server.
I like that.
Right. Because we are structuring the data so the answer engine can instantly digest it without ever rendering the human-facing CSS or HTML.
That translation ship analogy perfectly describes the function of automated schema builders.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So schema markup has been around for years, right? To help search engines categorize basic information.
Like a product's price in stock or
Sure.
the cook time on a recipe.
Exactly. But it was static code, usually typed out manually by some poor developer.
Right.
But today's automated schema builders use machine learning to dynamically map incredibly complex, multi-layered entities across a site in real time.
Real time.
Yeah. They analyze the context of a page, and they generate this sprawling, machine-readable parallel universe of your website.
So when Google's AI overview or ChatGPT search pings the server, it literally ignores the visual storefront entirely.
Totally ignores it.
It just goes straight to the loading dock and reads the structured inventory manifest.
That's exactly it. And to ensure that manifest is perfectly optimized before the answer engine ever sees it, development teams are integrating these content intelligence engines into their publishing workflows.
Now, how does a content intelligence engine functionally differ from the technical SEO audit tools we've been using for the last decade? Because the legacy tools would, crawl your staging site and flag a missing alt tag or a broken link or tell you a page took 3 seconds too long to load.
Right. Well, those legacy tools, they audit for technical compliance based on fixed crawler rules.
Okay.
But content intelligence engines audit for semantic comprehension based on LLM processing.
Oh, wow.
So you plug your draft into the engine, and it literally simulates how a vector database will process your text.
So it's reading it like an AI would.
Exactly. It will highlight a specific paragraph and flag, hey, an LLM will struggle to extract the core entity here because the causal link between your software and the outcome is obscured.
Oh, that's wild.
Or, it will analyze a claim you made and flag that you haven't established enough recognized source authority to support that claim, at least compared to the consensus data that AI already holds in its weights.
It's like a localized dress rehearsal for the citation algorithm.
That is exactly what it is.
You are actively testing your content survivability inside a miniature LLM before you expose it to the live answer engine.
Yes, and the scale of this automation, it reaches its peak with programmatic GEO tooling.
Okay.
This is where engineering teams use AI to dynamically generate and structure thousands of unique pages, pulling data directly from internal APIs, all perfectly formatted for answer engine extraction.
Thousands of pages.
Thousands. You aren't manually writing blog posts anymore. You are designing data pipelines that output optimized entities at scale.
If we pull back and look at the trajectory of these tools, automated schema, semantic intelligence audits, programmatic generation, This feels like a fundamental architectural divergence.
It absolutely
We
is.
are moving away from building websites as human-centric destinations.
The architecture of the web is completely splitting. Think
Mhm.
about it. A human-centric architecture prioritizes visual hierarchy, intuitive navigation menus, brand aesthetics.
Right.
It's designed to guide a mouse click and hold a human eye. But an AI-optimized architecture strips all of that away.
Because the AI doesn't care about your pretty colors.
Exactly. It prioritizes extreme data density, direct API accessibility, and incredibly fast, lightweight semantic HTML. So we're seeing major platforms shift toward headless CMS infrastructures.
Headless CMS. So for those who don't know, that's where the backend database is completely decoupled from the front-end presentation, right?
Precisely. The CMS of the future isn't a visual page builder like we're used to. It's a highly structured relational database that defines entities and feeds them directly to answer engines via API endpoints.
Wow.
The visual website, it still exists, but it basically becomes a secondary byproduct of the data structure rather than the primary focus of the development cycle.
So your primary interface with the public is actually the answer engine itself.
Yes. If Perplexity is reading the web on behalf of your target audience, then your digital infrastructure must be engineered specifically for Perplexity's ingestion parsers.
Okay, so for the strategist, the marketer, or the lead developer listening to this who has to walk into a Q3 planning meeting tomorrow morning, this theory can feel pretty overwhelming.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Because the legacy metrics, keyword search volume, time on page, bounce rate, these are deeply ingrained in how organizations measure digital success.
Yeah.
So what are the immediate actionable steps a team must take to triage their current site and basically survive this architectural shift?
Well, the absolute first step in that strategy meeting is realigning the team's KPIs.
Okay.
You have to decouple your success metrics from legacy crawler traffic. And you need to start auditing for entity clarity on your highest value pages.
Because you can't do it all at once.
Right. You don't rewrite a 10,000 page site overnight. You identify the 50 pages that drive your core business, you run them through a content intelligence engine, and you mathematically map the concepts that are currently vague.
The triage phase.
Yeah.
You isolate the money pages and you restructure the narrative fluff into explicit causal entity relationship.
Exactly. And then step 2 requires budget reallocation.
The money.
Always. If the engineering team is relying on out-of-the-box SEO plugins from 5 years ago to manage schema, they are literally speaking a dead language to modern citation algorithm.
Wow, dead language.
It's true. The organization must invest in the new tool stack, automated schema builders, and programmatic GEO architecture. The back-end plumbing has to be upgraded to output machine-readable data natively.
Okay, and the final piece of that strategic puzzle has to be source authority, right?
It has to be.
Because if you optimize the schema perfectly and you map the entities flawlessly, but the answer engine just doesn't recognize your brand as a foundational truth within the industry, it's just going to extract the data from a legacy competitor who actually has that established footprint.
Right, and authority is the hardest metric to fake in an LLM ecosystem.
You can't just buy a bunch of spammy backlinks anymore.
Nope. You can no longer publish highly optimized content in a vacuum and rely on technical tricks to rank. You must actively engineer brand citations.
What does that look like in practice?
It means your executives need to be quoted in authoritative industry journals. Your proprietary data needs to be referenced in academic papers or, major news outlets. The AI must encounter your brand consistently across its training corpus in proximity to your target entities.
And if you don't do that,
If you are not structurally recognized as the source, you will not be included in the generated overview. The binary nature of zero-click search means you are either the cited authority or you are invisible.
invisible. Man, so we have truly transitioned from meticulously organizing a library for a simplistic crawler bot to engineering complex, pre-digested data structures for an AI researcher.
We really have.
The evolution from SEO to generative and answer engine optimization, it really isn't just a marketing trend. It is the new baseline reality for digital visibility. The infrastructure of the internet is adapting to machines that read on our behalf.
And, the complexity of these citation algorithms will only increase as the models become more sophisticated. Mastering the mechanics of entity clarity and structural authority right now is basically the only way to ensure your data is the data that trains the next generation of answers.
The mechanics are just fascinating, and they really force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about digital real estate. But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone listening with one final thought to mull over. Building on this idea of headless architectures and invisible data feeds.
Okay.
If our CMS platforms and site architectures become perfectly optimized for automated schema builders, and our content is entirely pre-digested for LLM ingestion, will the concept of a website as a visual, human-navigable space eventually become totally obsolete?
That's the big question.
Are we moving toward a future where the internet is nothing but invisible structured data pipelines designed exclusively for AI researchers to read, while human beings never look at a traditional web page again?
Mhm.
Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.